Susan, would this treasurer please report to the front desk? Susan. Susan Benton. I don't think they can hear back there. Susan. Susan Benton. Madam Treasurer, please report to the front desk. She's coming. You got to turn that way up. Yeah. So he didn't download the latest one because I didn't get it till it's almost. Well, that's okay. But
So do you remember the numbers? Oh yeah, this doesn't have any. It's all crossed out. You notice that?
yeah, so you can highlight it, click font, and then right click. Well, really, what are you in? You're not in PowerPoint? Okay. I got the Mac version, so it's slightly different. So
it will say June 30th. Or the end of it.
do you want to start from the beginning, or do you want me to introduce you? I could do either way.
I can start beginning.
I'm waiting for my sync thing to come up. I was working on it, then I got a phone call. I'm like, I gotta get this
As
report.
long as that says green, you're live. And when you hold it, it'll go out. Still more ice cream in the back. It's melting. Ready? Okay, welcome to tonight's meeting. So I guess if you were on Zoom, you missed the ice cream social, and we've got a honey tasting going on tonight as well. The honey tasting is going to be after our remembrance of Kim. Greg Morrison has he's organized a small remembrance, and he's going to kick this off. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Before we begin, Danny James is going to lead us in a word of prayer.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we come this evening to say thank you. Thank you for giving us Kim Rossi for the time that she was with us. Everyone that knew her was blessed with her. She was well liked. She liked everyone. And we give you thanks for her life. We give you thanks that she is in heaven now, helping the beekeepers in heaven, I'm sure. We're thankful also for our chapter here that was given the pleasure of knowing her for the time that she was with us. Help us to stay in the nice frame of mind that she always had for each of us. Lead us and guide us in your way as we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Danny. Remembering Kim Rossi. Kim was very special to all of us. She had a very catching smile. She, like many of us at times, have our valleys, even long before she became sick. But her smile was always genuine and very catching. You'll see that in many of these pictures. She was an encourager. She was an encourager to me. I was a director for 3 years. And during that time, I was beeless for a period of time. I lost my bees one winter. I didn't feel right being a director and not having one honeybee. And she encouraged me that was okay. And probably the reason I got bees shortly thereafter and got back into beekeeping. And she was passionate about the honeybee in many different ways. One funny thing I think is her Prius. If you ever were around Kim, she was always unloading or loading her Prius. Most of the time it had to do with a bunch of bee supplies. And whether it's in Nightdale at the police club or here or just always loading and unloading. And at the fair, I helped her with the fair some last year. She made the fair happen last year for us. It would have been sad as the largest bee club in the state of North Carolina, probably one of the largest in the country, if we didn't have representation in a booth at the NC State Fair. And she not only led the charge, she probably did 95% of the work last year. So I'm convinced that would not have happened last year without Kim Rossi. So she was passionate about the honeybee and a good friend, and she will be missed by many in many different ways. After Dawn Childers speaks, she's going to share her remembrances of Kim. We're going to open up. It'll give you a chance to think a little bit, open it up to anybody else that may want to share a few words after Dawn is finished. Dawn Childers was treasurer of the club for several years when her husband Mike was president. And that's when I first started coming to this club. And I think through that probably developed a close friendship with Kim. And Dawn was very willing to come and share some thoughts with each of us. So, Dawn.
Thank you, Greg. I've got my paper up here, so I got to stand up here, y'all. Mike and I inherited all of Kim's ribbons. So I brought some of them today. And the one that I really want to show off is the blue ribbon. Some of you were part of the club when we won this blue ribbon for that particular thing that Greg was just talking about, the state fair. So when I look at that blue ribbon, I've got some things I want to talk about, but I know each beekeeper in this club right now and on Zoom wants to know the question. And I have an answer for you. Yes, the bees have been told. Dave and I did that on Sunday. I was over there with him on Sunday. And we told the bees. And they were very sad, but I hear that they're going to a great home. So someone in the club will get them, and I hope they treasure them like Kim did. As Mike and I visited with Kim just a few days before she passed, we reminisced of all the bee club memories. I looked on her bee shelf. There was a display of her knickknacks and the ribbons. And of course, this blue ribbon stood out among all of the rest. When I think of the significance of a blue ribbon, I think the best of the best, a real winner. And that holds true of Kim Rossi. She was an amazing lady. The hard work she put into everything she did with this club, her dedication to get that Best in State B booth, blue ribbon that year. What an honor for this club. It was bragging rights. It had not been done in a while since the Wake County Beekeepers held that ribbon. So it was pretty special. And it was all because of Kim. I remember going that day to the state fair. Boy, that was crazy. And she organized that whole thing. Kim's dedication of time and talents for the love of beekeeping was contagious to all around her. She was a great leader and a blue ribbon in my eyes. I want to leave you all with this thought. Most of you know a bee's life is 6 weeks. That worker bee stays busy every day and night to keep that hive ready for the next generation. Kim was doing the same thing. All her hard work was preparing for all you new beekeepers so you can prosper in your journey. This club is only successful because people like Kim, who step up, volunteer, show leadership, give back, and hard work. So let's all raise our voices one last time and give Kim her final buzz. Buzz. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Don. Is there anybody else that would like to share a few thoughts about Kim? Anybody else? All righty. Oh, yeah. Susan?
Yeah, I had the honor to write my thoughts that was emailed out to you about Kim. And it's been a really honor and privilege to know her and to know her as my friend in the bee club. And she was like a busy bee. I keep thinking of things I forgot to say about her. And one thing I wanted to say was that she could design a t-shirt. She was always trying to get us to upgrade our t-shirt design. And I think we had a contest, but we stuck mainly with our same design. But when our club celebrated the 40-year anniversary, she had a shirt made and was, I received one of them. It's a long sleeve shirt. Otherwise, I would have worn it tonight in honor of Kim. I think about her every time I wear that. We're going to miss her. We'll go on. But my life was enriched from knowing Kim and being her friend.
Thank you, Susan. Anybody else? Okay. She was very special to us. Let's keep her family, Dave, and kids and grandkids in our prayers. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. So now we're going to do honey tasting. So no, it's open. Anybody can go back. So we'll start our business meeting. So the treasury report, we have $23,633. Mainly that's coming from memberships through the website. And yeah, I don't remember that number being there before. Yeah, $37. Okay, so then next is the secretary's report. And so we have 378 members. Something that I haven't been good at, and that Kim was always very good about was asking if there are any new members present tonight. Do we have any new members? Or new visitors? Visitors, not necessarily a member, but this is your first time here. That's very unusual. There's nobody, no new members. So anyway, if you haven't renewed, you can renew at our website. Okay, so it's that time of year again when we select officers, and so I appointed 3 people. It turns out that they are all directors this year. I didn't even realize I did that, but one is Chris Hagwood, and Greg Morrison, and Tom Wells. If you are interested in serving as an officer, you need to get in touch with one of these 3 people. If you go on the website and look in the membership directory, their contact information is there. I'm not sure if we have the director's information on the contacts page, but if not, you can look up individual members, and it's just one way that you can give back. So at the October meeting, that's when you'll get a chance to, you'll find out who the committee has selected to people that have said they're going to be willing to be officers, and you get to vote on them at that point. Next slide. So help wanted, we still need speakers. Lori Harris is our education coordinator, and go to that link if you want to find out the emails from her. This will give you a chance to speak at for people who want to learn about bees. State Fair display booth, we finally have a committee, and we're just looking for any more committee members, anyone else who wants to help. We need your ideas, and ultimately we're going to need items to display, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that later in the meeting. Honeybee Day. So Susan Benton is organizing that, and she will be there for the full day, but she's going to need help. I think she said she's going to need eight volunteers for the day, and that's coming up August 13th. Next slide. All right, so our upcoming events, July 17th, Hands on the Hive. Our next monthly meeting is going to be about small hive beetles. Then Honeybee Days on August 13th. Bug Fest. I got one question because I haven't quite, I'm ready to submit the form to sign us up, but I'm interested to know if anybody is willing to sell honey on that day. I mean, you can get a pretty decent price. And one thing I suggested, if we have multiple people selling honey, that we all sell at the same price, and that would be at least $15 per pound. So it's a good way to get full price for your honey. You got a lot of people walking by you, but I just need to know if there's anybody. So please contact me if you're interested. If I don't hear from anybody, I'm not going to reserve the space. I'm just going to tell them we need 1 tent, and we'll just not have two tables. So just let me know. And then October 13th to the 23rd is the State Fair. And as always, you can go to the club website and find out just look at our calendar for events. Next slide. Conferences. So we got the state meeting, and I believe you have to register by the 16th to save $20. If you just walk in, it's going to cost you $20 more. Then we have EAS coming up first week of August. And then there's this Hive Life conference in Sevierville, Tennessee. And that one, I expect that one to probably be the biggest of these 3. I'm not sure how many people show up at EAS, but they had 900 at the Hive Life conference, and they're going to cap it this year at 1,500. They're expecting more than they normally have. If you go to that website, there are a lot of speakers that they have, well-known speakers. Next slide. So our meeting dates this year is really going by quickly. So August 9th is the next meeting. Remember, the election night is Zoom only. Next. And so now we're going to have Danny James talk about preparing for the state fair.
All right, mic check. Can everybody hear me back there? I can certainly hear myself here, but can you hear me in the back good? Thank you. Let me start by saying that why I'm giving you this presentation, I guess. Mary and I have won a blue ribbon in almost every category for the state fair over the years. Now, this is over a period of about 20-some years. Mary has won the sweepstakes award for cooking with honey. So if you have questions about cooking with honey, talk to Mary this evening. She'll be glad to help you. This is what we're shooting for. Now you'll notice that it has a little of everything on there. Well, this year the booth doesn't require, but we would be wise to have all 35 entries in that booth. Not only on the booth, but you prepare 2 entries for each of your entries. For extracted honey, prepare 6 bottles, 3 for the booth and 3 for your competition. Because you will be graded both. The items on the booth as well as your individuals will be graded. The more blue ribbons you see on there, the more it counts towards the sweepstakes award. And that year we took not only the blue ribbon for the booth, but we took the sweepstakes award for that year. The honey that's up there, and I don't believe this pointer will, yeah, it does. That happened to be sourwood honey. This is a good year for sourwood honey. So if you've got honey up in the mountains, save 48 jars of it. 50 jars actually is what it takes for the competition for that, for there. So we'll talk about different entries. And if you've got a question about any of these as we go through, raise your hand and let's ask it before, because you'll probably forget it before we get through to the end of this. All the products of the hive are for competition, whether it's wax, whether it's cooking with honey, whether it's wine. Now, in the past, we've had quite a few people right here in Wake County that take the blue ribbon for wine. And we can tell that they won the blue ribbon because you look at the bottle, Wake County bottles are almost empty because they keep tasting. I just can't believe it's that good. So they just keep tasting it. So don't forget that. Don't forget cooking with honey. The basic thing about cooking with honey is that the sweetener for your product has to be predominantly honey. And keep in mind, when you use honey as a sweetener, you use half honey that you would in granulated sugar because it's that sweet. Okay, when do we start? And I'll tell you, this is a way that I have done it over the past. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the only way, no, but it is a way that it's worked for us quite successfully. You're right now in the process, most of us are in the process of extracting your honey. If you're going to enter extracted honey, I would suggest take about a half of a gallon and set it aside. Keep it in a warm place. Keep in mind that there's air bubbles all in that honey. So the longer you let it sit in a warm place, the more of those bubbles are going to come to the top. And as you get closer, you will start putting it in your containers. Yes, sir.
When you say a warm place, what are you talking about as far as temperature?
Well, at least warm temperature of a home, 70 degrees or more, because if you let it get below down there.
So just in the house somewhere. It's fine.
Yes, sir. In the house. His question was, what do I mean by warm place? Most of our homes are warm right now, but preparing extracted honey, light, amber, and dark. The chart is online. And so you just have to go to the website and open it, and it gives you a graph, whether it's light, dark. The graph tells you what color to enter. Now, I do not know about this year, but in the past, if you entered as light, it might be light amber, they won't penalize you. They'll just put it in the right category. But it's better for you to put it in the right categories to start with. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about preparing chunked honey. We'll talk about a block of wax. Now, this has been a bone of contention with me over the years. They say this should be this year's harvest, but then they say it has to be, the block of wax has to be 8 pounds. There's not too many of you that makes that much honey in a year to make an 8-pound block of black beeswax. This year, I have searched the site. It does not say any weight, but it does say it will be graded in weight and volume and a number of things there. So read carefully all the guidance on that. Preparing figurines or whatnot, preparing an observation hive, or preparing a gift basket. And we'll talk a little bit about each of these. Again, extracted honey, collect that honey and let it sit, because you'd be amazed. And I've got here in front of me, it's called a polariscope. And if you haven't seen one, all it does is you put your honey in there and put a light that goes through, and you'd be amazed at what you think it looks very clear. That polariscope will show up every little hair, anything that's in there. And you want to make sure that it is free of any kind of lint, bee parts, air bubbles, or whatnot. I'd also suggest to you, if you're going to prepare for extracted honey, put it in a classic 1-pound honey jar, keeping in mind that honey is sold by weight, not by volume. This bottle was specifically designed for competition. It is 16 ounces of honey. A pint of honey, for example, is 22 ounces, not 16 ounces like water is. So keep in mind that most places, and I don't know if David will do this, but I'll put him on the spot here, I guess. Most of the people that sell these bottles will let you go through and pick out, because bottles, like everything else, have flaws in them. And if it's got a flaw in the side of this glass, it'll cost you points in competition. So go through and get a bottle that doesn't have any flaws in it. Air bubbles, you can see that in a lot of containers. So keeping in mind that if you're over 18.6% water content, you'll be disqualified. We have a device, it's called a refractometer. You put a drop of honey on there and you let it sit for a few minutes, and you put it up to the light and it'll tell you exactly the water content in your honey. If it's over 18.6, you'll be disqualified. So you want to make sure it is less than that. And there are a number of ways, if you're collected honey that should not be collected because it's not fully capped, you're going to take a chance on it being over 18.6%. So when you're extracting honey, especially for competition, make sure that it is at least 90% of that frame is capped. Then you'll have a better chance of it not being over. Strain your honey, wax, both of them, through nylon curtains. You can get those. I used to go to Rose's there in Fuquay Arena, and that's the best place to get those nylon curtains. You can get two sets of those. I don't know what they're called, but in one package for $5. Well, it'll last you for years. Okay, so that's the best thing, and you can strain it 2 or 3 times. Keeping in mind that straining and filter are 2 completely different things. Filtering is when you filter out pollen, everything else out of your honey. You want to strain it through a curtain just to get bee parts, wax, whatnot. You want to get it as clean as you possibly can. Yes, sir. It's a nylon curtain. Shears is what Mary Alice reminds me that it is what they're called, but you can use it over and over and over. I let mine sit at least 30 days if I'm going for competition. The longer it sits, more of the impurities are going to come to the top of the jar. Also, we'll overfill it by 1/4 of an inch. This is another bone of contention that a lot of us have had over the years with the inspectors. They say it has to be at a certain fill level, but they never tell you what the fill level is. But what I've found over the years, if you put the honey in your jar to where you do not see space between that lid and the honey in jar, that normally fits the requirement. So fill level is important. So if you overfill it by 1/4 of an inch, it gives you a chance to take some of that out, especially when you see some of the air bubbles coming to the top. And the way I do get the air bubbles off is take saran wrap, take it, wrap your finger and just touch it. It'll take up those bubbles real easy. Excuse me. I will make sure that I bring my polariscope and the refractometer to our meeting in August and September. So if you want to check your items for competition, I'll have the items here and you can go through it. You can see whether it has impurities in it or if it's the right water content into your honey. So I'll have them available. That does. Chunked honey, excuse me. The honey that goes into chunked has got to be as pure as the jar that you've got in it. Make sure there's no impurities in it whatsoever. You want to take that piece of chunked honey. One of the ladies showed me this evening a couple of chunks of honey. One is light and one is dark. Is she still here? Okay. When you put that into competition, make sure that the chunk of honey has the cells coming up, not down. A little bit of a trick to this also is if you're going to use a 16-ounce jar or a 22-ounce pint jar to put your chunked honey in, you'd be wise to use honey from a medium or an Illinois frame. If you use a shallow frame, it's not long enough to fill that up to where you don't have space top or the bottom. And you will be judged on whether it's on the top or the bottom. Over the years, I've learned that if you're going to use this for competition, let your wax, cut it out the size you're going to put it in the bottle, let it, especially the bottom of it, be almost dry. Take your container and heat it a little bit. Heat the bottom of it. You set that block down there on that heated bottom and it'll stick so that it won't float to the top when you get that, when you put your honey in there. So there's a little bit of a trick there to making sure that you don't give space at the bottom or at the top. That should be graded on. I find that if you put at least 2 pieces of chunk honey in there, you give both sides of it, whether it is for, they're going to check to see if all those cells are full and capped. You don't want to put a chunk of honey in there that is got holes in it because then you're going to lose points for it. That's for the advantage of going to an Illinois frame or the midlife, because it's big enough you can cut some of the top off, some at the bottom. Block of wax. I went after that for so many years and finally won it by using 8 pounds of wax. Some of you may have seen it. I made an outline of the state of North Carolina. And I put NCSBA right across the top of it, but it weighed 8 pounds and some odd ounces. So I finally got it across, but and I may submit it this year. I'll have to melt it down and I'm not going to use 8 pounds of it though. Again, straining it through nylon cartons. That's the best way to get the impurities out. Never, never, never work with beeswax on an open flame. The flash point, it will make you non-habit forming rather quickly. You want to do it over a double boiler and an electric heat rather than an open flame. So keep that in mind. Don't work with beeswax on open flame. It's not good. Your blocks of wax is graded by size and weight. Candles and figurines are always an important part of a competition. And if you buy a mold for your wax, it always will give you the temperature of the wax to pour it into your mold. And make sure you use mold release, and that way it won't stick and whatnot. But excuse me. Follow the directions on your mold, and it'll come out real clear and pretty for you. When you start grading figurines, if you don't watch air bubbles in that, and what I do when I have a mold, I'll fill it to the top, and then I'll very carefully just take something and peck the side of it. It'll let the air that's in the bottom of that, because there's crevices all in your molds, that'll catch air. So if you tap the side of it, it'll let the air come back up to the top. And again, you'll have to add a little bit of wax after you've done that, because it'll let the level come back down. Okay, let's talk about an observation hive. Keep in mind, this is October when you are going to submit your observation hive. The observation hive needs to have a good frame of brood. And if you're going to submit just the frame of the brood, it should indicate that you have pollen and you have pollen and you have brood. Most people, when you enter an observation hive for competition, it's two frames. It is the frame of honey, the brood, and above it is a frame of honey. And that way you've met the requirement for both of those. If you submit an observation hive the day after it's graded, you can take it home. It must have a marked queen, and the marked queen this year is yellow. So you have to have a marked queen, because those inspectors are looking at it, don't know how to find a queen, you have to have it marked for them. Anyway, that's a requirement. I believe that says a basket. This, again, over the years has changed, and it depends upon the people that are grading you. At one time, everything in that basket's supposed to be products of your year's honey. The wax, the honey, whatever you have, whether it's creamed honey or chunked honey. The more items you can put into that basket that is natural and from your year's supply of honey, the better it's going to be. Now, how do they know whether it's this year's honey or not? If you got an answer to that, I'd be glad to hear it. But it is one of the requirements that they put in there. This year's, over the years, they have allowed commercial items to be put into that basket. But now, what Mary and I have found over the years, the key to this is that that basket is going to be portable, can be moved around. Because if you try to put everything into a wicker basket, sometimes the wicker is not strong enough to hold everything, and you try to pick it up, things fall apart. So you need to be real careful in the container that you're going to use for that basket. This is an argumentative subject also, but the requirements are quite clear that you have to have some reference in your honey, how doesn't get back in contact with you. So this was the specific guidance put out by the North Carolina State Beekeeping Association about 7 years ago, and I don't think it's changed that much. But also keeping in mind that honey is sold by weight, not by volume, not a quart, not a pint. You can say that this is 16 ounces because that's what it was designed to be. We're talking about labeling and calling it sourwood. Boy, that's been a hot topic in this association since I've been a part of it for 21 years. The requirement to label something as sourwood, you must have it tested. And where you can get it tested now, I do not know because Dr. Bryant has passed away. It used to be a place in Texas A&M University. You could send your samples to him and he'd tell you everything in the world that's in it. But it had to be 51 or more % sourwood for you to label as sourwood, or basswood, or gallberry, or blackberry, or any other particular floral flavor that you label it. So we have found over the years, just to be safe, it's wildflower. And if they want to know what's in it, you can give them a chart that shows you everything that's in it. Junior competition. Get your young ones involved in junior competition. In the premiums online, it'll give you all the categories that the youth can participate in, from coloring books through extracted honey through wax, any number of items. But don't forget their entries, because spur them to be interested in beekeeping a little bit more that way. And I'll do a little bragging because this was my grandson, and this was a great number of years ago that that mold came out. And I bought it, and it's about a 4-pound block. And he won a blue ribbon and the best of the show just because he got involved in making that block. So we were real proud of him for that. Pictures of your activities and whatnot. That becomes very important also, whether it is a queen doing something or you're doing something. I had one year that I opened up a hive and a queen started emerging from the cell, and I put my fingers out and let her crawl on my finger, and I took a picture of it as the queen came out on my finger. I didn't win anything, but it was really my I was glad of it, or proud of it. Cooking with honey. That same year, Mary won blue ribbon for the best of the show, and she won the sweepstakes award because she entered, I don't know, 15 or 20 cooking with items that she entered. The more you enter, the better it is. The more. So again, keep in mind that sugar is not the sweetener. It's got to be honey is the primary consideration in cooking with honey. And your interest there, it has to be the main source of sweetener has to be honey. This was the year before that we entered, and we did not win the sweepstakes, but we did win a tremendous number of blue ribbons. Now, that year we had a glass hive, not glass, it was fiberglass. So you could see everything in it, where the bees would work and whatnot. We had an observation hive, we had frames of honey, we had all the items that were required. Used to be, it was only 23 items that was required for the booth. This year, for those of you that are on the committee for the booth, 35 items are suggested to be on the booth. So it's going to take a lot of effort on all of us to submit different items, not only just extracted honey, wax, pictures, an observation hive. All these items need to be on that booth for us to, again, take that blue ribbon. I would love to see us do it. I'd love to see us do it for the one thing that Kim was so interested in this chapter. Back when we had a turnover of leadership and Kim took over, she was a ball of fire, and she stayed that ball of fire for all the years that she was with us here. But let's make an effort to try to get the blue ribbon or do the best we can with that booth this year. As was already stated, we have the largest chapter, we have one of the largest chapters in the state. Can you still hear me back in the back? Because I can hear myself phasing out. Make it a point for us to try to honor her memory by doing the best we can for the state. We're always expected to be, because here we are, the center of the state, and the fair is right in our county. So let's do the best we can to support that. This was the booth that won again. It also had sourwood honey that year. One of the things that's going to be hard, and for those of you that are good at photographing things, it takes 12 photographs of the nectar producing flowers that you could see. Those are the pictures of them. One year we tried to have the actual plants, and that's not it can be done. But that's one of the hardest areas for us to meet, is to get those photographs or the pictures of all the nectar producing flowers. I believe this is, yeah, it's Orange County. They won the year after we did. Well, we, of course, were a little prejudiced in the sense that we were doing better than they did, but the judges thought it a little differently. But this was their booth that year. The premium book is online. I've gone online and I've got a copy of it up here if you want to look at it. It gives you all the guidance, all the judging criteria. And you might want to take a look at the prizes at stake. A blue ribbon is $50, folks. The blue ribbon for the booth is $150. It's certainly not going to compensate equally for the expenditures that we put into it, but at least the big thing is bragging rights. Now, if you're in the process of selling honey, you'd be amazed that when you start to sell your honey and somebody says, well, tell me about your honey. Oh, by the way, it's blue ribbon money. I won the blue ribbon at the state fair. I won the blue ribbon at Wake County. That blue ribbon means a lot when you start selling your honey, not only for bragging rights, but it's good for your economical status of it also. You want to write down, if you will, the way to enter this. Just go online to NC State Fair competition and just follow the directions, and it'll get you right to where you want to go as far as information you need for your entries. I have about 25 of the entry forms here. If you're interested, I'll leave them up here on the table, and after a while you can come by and pick up one, or you can go online and download it yourself, and you can actually print it online, I believe this year, and then print it off. Let's make it an effort to make it in honor of Kim. Now, do I have any questions about anything? I realize I've covered a lot rather quickly, but if any questions, I'll try to answer. If I can't, I'll get some other experts back there. David can answer a little of it. Yes, ma'am. Okay, now, if I'm going to enter extracted honey, for example, that's 16 ounces, 6 times 16 ounces, 3 for the booth, 3 for my individual entry. It gives you some wiggle room as far as amount of honey, because you're going to have to strain, you're going to have to take some of it out and whatnot. So it's a little more than you need, yes, but I'd rather have a lot more than a lot less, because when you can't add something to it, you can take away and not be noticeable in your grading. Does that answer your question? Yeah, her question was, why half a gallon? So you've got plenty to work with. Any other questions that I might be able to answer? Thank you for inviting me to share a little bit of knowledge for you about your preparing for competition and sales.
Can you hear me okay? Let's see. I think I've been with the club maybe about 4 or 5 months. Some reason or other, last month after the meeting, they were asking for volunteers. I thought, what the heck? I don't know anything. I think that was pretty clearly what I told Jim is I know nothing. I really don't know too many people in the club, but I'll be happy to help. So I guess at this point, I have huge shoes to fill in terms of trying to coordinate for the state fair. But I've got a room full of people and a club that can do great things, is what I think. And I'll get to know you probably through some of this. So I've been researching a bit of what this is about. Danny certainly has much more experience than I do. So the link, the competitive link is not up yet that we found for this year. The link from 2021 is still up there. And you can take a look at that, and it contains it is? Okay, well, I will go look further then. But I have already reserved a booth with Adolphus for us, so we are committed that far. Okay, really the products have been produced here in North Carolina. They've been produced this year. And I really am not sure I'm the best person to explain this, but you can enter your product as us as the booth, and you can also enter it as an individual. And again, I'll figure out more what that means, but I think, in support of the booth is great, and you can have your product also listed as your name, and you can also win that way as well. Now, I've listed some of the items here real quickly. Danny referenced them as well. We need to have photos up of nectar producing plants. I don't know if anybody has any great photos in your collections, but we're looking for volunteers. Again, there's frame for comb, different kinds of comb sections here that are required in terms of items. Then there's quite a bit in terms of the honey that Danny was just talking about in terms of the different types of honey products they're looking for. And then non-honey bee products as well. So all of these are the collection of items that we need to get displayed in the booth. I think this is pretty close to all of them. We may miss them. Kristen back here has volunteered to be part of this with me. She's been working on getting together the sign-up list for it. And I think it's going to be available through the website here fairly soon. We'll make sure we send out a note to the club in terms of making sure that's available. So this will be a great place for you to contact us and let us know how you'd like to contribute to the booth in terms of product. Okay. This is still, again, some more of the non-honey products here. If anybody needs any sampling on the meat ahead of time, I'll be happy to help judge. Again, you've seen several of the pictures of the booths that we have done before. One thing that I am kind of wondering, and maybe some of you know, whether we have any of the material in terms of the, I guess what I call the artistic elements of the booth around, whether people have any of that or not. Clearly these booths have some really pretty cool things in terms of displays and other stuff that's built into it, and anything that we could get ahead of time would be a huge lever. Go ahead and show some of the other pictures. A really great picture here on our blue ribbon booth. I think we'll be looking some more in terms of what we might do along those lines. Go ahead. I really like the backlit display. Definitely be something we probably want to try and figure out how to do with the honey there. Okay, next. And another one of the booth products. So these are some of the previous booths we've done. I clearly probably, Danny, you may have some other pictures. I probably need to look at a lot of different pictures to see what else we can come up with. Go ahead. So some ask here. We've been talking among ourselves some about a theme. Do you know where that's coming from? So we may have one or more themes that we'd want to do. Some of it has been sort of suggested a life cycle of the bees. Another one could be, here's what you as a general person could do to help the bees out. And so, definitely looking for any kind of theme ideas that we might weave into the booth. It seems like that's fairly important. It has been suggested that we might want to create a remembrance of Kim in the booth as well. And I think one of the things that occurred to me is we might want to leverage some of the slides that we had and some of the other verbiage, and maybe we could just make a rolling display or something in the booth, but certainly looking for ideas of how we might do it and remember Kim. Again, Kristen's got the sign up sheet, and I can tell you, I can't do any of those honey products anywhere close to something that's going to get a blue ribbon. Just keeping the bees alive is enough for me. So definitely going to need you people who can do those great things to help us out. And as I mentioned, any of the artistic elements that may exist that people may have or might be useful to display. I think, I can't remember, but somebody I believe had volunteered some really nicely decorated hives that we might add into there. Really could use some of that. And anything else that you want to help us with, just remember, I'm the new guy. I know nothing. But I'm happy to go make this happen, but I need stuff from you guys so that we can go do a great job on the booth. So give me a yell, got my email up there, and I'll see if we can do the best job we can for Kim. All right, any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tony and Danny. I got one tip for the blue ribbon on the chunk honey. Just enter in a COVID year. There was much less competition. So I actually didn't even attempt to win. When I filled out the entry forms, I skipped that one and I just brought it to the booth and put it on the display, and Kim put a tag on it and it just won. But there's not as much competition in chunk honey. And in a COVID year, wow. So anyway, so next slide. All right, so we'll turn it over to Keith for the town hall. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. A couple items before we actually get into the town hall. Grab my notes. For those of you who were here last month or on Zoom for our trivia contest, we have the prizes that you can pick up over here. There's a sheet of paper. Would you please, if you pick up your prize, which is a entrance reducer, if you mark off your name, and that way I know who's picked them up and who hasn't. I'd like to thank David Bailey for donating the entrance reducers as our prize. So give a there's some 8-frame and 10-frame reducers. So also, I'm assuming that if other people have refractometers that they can bring in August and September, that it might be good to have several if people want to bring their honey to test the moisture content. So if anybody else has one that they want to bring for the next couple months, that would be good. Okay. The idea behind the town hall was to ask for feedback. Oftentimes when we do things, we get compliments or job well done, and we always like those. So please keep them coming. But we don't always get the could have done something better, or maybe if you'd done it this way, or haven't you thought about doing this? So what I wanted to do is open it up to the floor to get input on what types of things that you like about what we're doing, but also what things you might see us do a little different. And being the program chair, of course, I'm always looking for great ideas for program topics or speakers. So any of those would be good as well. So is anyone have something oh, by the way, if you've been in the last couple of meetings, you know that I'm not bashful about picking on people. So if I don't get feedback, I'll start asking questions. So anybody? Oh, come on. I'm gonna start picking on people. No comments? Okay, Tony. You're live.
So again,
Well, little louder.
speaking as the new guy, and I realized when I started, we were in the midst of COVID, but I really didn't get to know who was what or who did what. And I think I'm now discovering that a bit more. So, I don't know if there's some way that maybe the people who are sort of key club members, officers, maybe try and reach out, introduce to the new people some scheme of that, just so that you get to know who's who and can start making contacts.
So that's an excellent idea. In fact, when we were discussing tonight's meeting, one of the items that we'd kicked around is actually having the officers do a short couple of minute, discussion about who they are, but also what the position is. And the agenda kind of filled up and, we really didn't have enough time to do that this month. But given, Tony, that that's something, sounds like would be desirable, we will fit that into a future meeting where we can, carve out 30 minutes and have the key members of the club, officers, directors, speak. And of course, we've got a wealth of beekeeping knowledge, as members. I mean, there's, Danny Janes, we got Dana Stallman, we got tons of people in the club who have vast knowledge, years and years of experience beekeeping that we should make, peak of the.
Maybe some sort of index or something of people. I mean, it's just, I'm sure there's great resources here. It's just as a new person, I'm not sure how I get to know these people and reach out to them.
Yeah, the officers are listed on the website, but I think it's more than just the list of who the officers are. You want to, some backgrounds and bios. In the past, we've had speakers, when our members have spoken, officers have spoken, we have little brief bios. We should probably figure out a way to capture that and make it available online. Especially when you get into areas where you need help in researching and, ask, questions to someone. Now, the mentor program, of course, is always a good avenue to get that help. Okay, Tom, yeah, come up here and behind the mic or the speakers, because otherwise we'll be plugging our ears with our fingers.
I would like to see if we could get a visit to the university and find out what goes on over at the program at State. It's a shame for us to have that right in our backyard, and I've never been there, and I'd like to see if we could get an invitation to go over there sometime for an open house or something.
In that July and August is when we start preparing for next spring. I'd like to see a program, and you may have this already programmed or scheduled. You need to start talking about how to prepare your bees for next spring.
Actually, the workshop we're planning for next month is preparing for winter. So that's on the agenda. Now, next month, we've got Jennifer Keller talking about small hive beetles, and that's a problem that I have largely driven by the fact that my hives are in the shade, and that always compounds a problem. So I'm looking for some help with dealing with small hive beetles. There are a couple ideas that people have for mitigating small hive beetles, and hopefully we can talk about that as part of Jennifer's presentation. But preparing for winter is definitely a workshop next month. Okay, hold on. I'm just afraid we're going to get feedback on that speaker.
I have two questions. Well, one, does the executive committee ever take notes for their meetings, and can those be put online? And then my second question is, does the executive committee have ideas about what they want to do with the large budget that we have, or amount of money that we have sitting in the bank?
Those are very, very good questions. Jim, would you like to come forward? So that's beyond my pay grade, I'll call it. Oh, I wasn't supposed to say that out loud, was I? Okay, so
So we actually do have minutes. Our secretary keeps the minutes for all the meetings. I don't know, do we publish them anywhere? Yeah, we can.
so let's talk about that in our next meeting.
Yeah, and there was another proposal is that we just open up the executive meetings and just invite anybody to join. I don't know. Yeah. As far as what? Oh, the budget. Mike Childers back there had an idea. No, I remember back when he was president, he had this idea that we were going to buy land, and I know land is cheap, right? So we're still looking. We have no idea. I mean, what do we have? $23,000, and how we're going to use that. So would be happy if you have ideas. Of a good way to use that. I know we do make donations like to the B Lab and to other things, but our budget, our account just keeps growing and growing.
Well, one thing we've been waiting for is for the B Lab to get started. One thing we've been waiting for is B Lab actually to get started and out the door, because at that point in time, we would like to try to make a club donation to the actual B Lab building itself, but that's still getting delayed at this point. That's one thing we've talked about.
Okay, so the other thing is that over the last couple of years, our expenses to income have shifted because of COVID. We didn't spend hardly any money at all. And of course, the membership dues are a big part of our income. And so I think there've been, like Gordon and Jim have said, there's a lot of things in the pipeline. I agree, we need to reach out in the community. One of the things I'm going to talk about in a minute is the Golden Achievement Program. And that there's lots of opportunities to do more in the community and invest and educate, people of Wake County about honeybees. Okay, so I've got those notes, so thank you. Okay, any other feedback, comments? Gordon, can you do me a favor and check Zoom to see if we have anyone that's got an idea? Okay. Yeah, go ahead, go here. Do you want to?
The only thing on here is just agreeing with Tom that it's a great idea to visit NC State.
Okay, so yell at me, Gordon, if there's another comment from Zoom. Okay. So Gordon's the one that's driving. Gordon and April are working on improvements in how we create and make badges available. You see a lot of people around with the larger yellow ones. I have a white one, it's smaller. This was printed from the website. So you can go into your profile and actually print a new a badge. And we have purchased these plastic sleeves and the clips. And I think, do you want to give some more? Because you've got the details.
Well, our plan is to send you all instructions on how to do that. One with the new application software we're using, they have a way the badges are in there, the different size and all, because he's representing that. But the thought was to try to start using those. And so we're going to send you instructions on how to print them out yourself. And then we'll provide the holders and the clips. And if you have problems with that, we'll give you instructions, try to help you through that. But that was one of our thoughts, because taking advantage of our software instead of doing it the other way, which is a little bit more difficult to manage and didn't give you all an access to print it yourself, which we now have the ability for that. And if you don't have a printer, well, then we'll print them for you.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to create the name badges for B School this past year, and it was a very cumbersome process to actually create the tag, get them printed and stuff. This was a little easier, and just got the plastic sleeves last week and experimented with my own tag. So thank you. Any other ideas? Some of the board, oh, Mike. Now, Mike, can you come up? Get behind that speaker and it creates feedback and so don't need the squealing.
I was just going to help the new guy out up here. One of the biggest challenges when I was in part of this is what you were describing of having a challenge of finding the materials for that booth. Every single person in here that's been here for an extended period of time has a piece of equipment at their home that either has belonged to the club or the club has paid for it to build it or something of that nature. So the thing that I would suggest for you to do is get a hold of a yellow book. And in your spare time, if you have any, go through those names and just start calling folks. Because I don't know, is she here? So there was an equipment person that was left in charge that has all that equipment. But I'm not for sure if that list has been updated. But one of the goals, perfectly, one of the goals was to get land so we could put a small shed or something so that it doesn't get lost in people's attics, in their garages and so on and so forth. But if you have a chance, even maybe a club email to the entire club, to try to identify where that equipment might be. Cause I know I've got stuff that's not listed on there. So I have stuff from Mr. Knox that was used in the B booths. It's going to take a lot of work to get it up and running, but I do have it. So.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments? Okay, so one of the things that I think is important is recognition that this club is for you, okay? And it is only as good as the participation of its members. So you've seen discussions, Jim's talked and Tony's talked about needing help. There's lots of different ways to help. And if you have a skill, a capability that you want to say, hey, I can do this, how can the club take advantage of it? Come forward. You reach out to any of the officers or directors and volunteer. Always looking for computer skills. Be good to have another person as backup or to help with the technology side of the meetings. The club can get better and do more with your help. So that's the most important thing. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is the Golden Achievement Program. You're going to hear some more about this over the next months because this is becoming a kind of a personal challenge that I'm going to take on for myself. And we mentioned it briefly at the last executive committee meeting. I want to talk more about it, the one this month, but we're doing a lot of stuff already, but we're not documenting what we're doing. And there's a few areas, probably more than a few, that we're not doing that we could maybe help spend some of that money we got and get recognition at the state level for being an outstanding club. I think was mentioned earlier that we're the largest one in the state, probably one of the largest in the country, and we should be winning this Golden Achievement Award every year. So look for some information coming in the next newsletter. We're going to look for help in actually competing and winning this award. So Golden Achievement Program. So at this point, what I want to do is there's honey to be tasted if you haven't or want more. I'm going to go back and sample. I haven't had any yet. There's more ice cream back there. Anybody else want more ice cream? I do. I didn't get much, so I want to go get me some. Jim, do you have anything you want to close? So I think this probably we're pretty well. Oh yeah. So here, I'm gonna turn it over to Jim.
Okay, I think it's just the raffle up next. I mean, I did have one idea, and that is like, if you're a new beekeeper and you just have a couple of hives, it takes a long time to get experience just looking at 2 hives. But what if you formed a little group? You find neighbors that are the closest beekeepers to you, and you have 5 or 6 of you, and you go inspect other people's hives. And I'm saying, if you're hosting, you're the one that's doing the inspection, everybody else watches, and that way, your neighbor doesn't kill your queen. But that would give you the opportunity for you to look at other hives. So I think one thing the club could do is kind of let you know who are the beekeepers that are close to you. And then you guys would be responsible for forming your own little group. So that's just one idea. So do we have the numbers or?
I will say that when you look at some of the people with the yellow tags on, you'll see like a number. He's got a 2 on his, I got a 1 on mine. What that means is we divided up the county into the swarm areas so that in essence, you would know who lives kind of close to you in generality. So if you see somebody with a like number of yours, then that might be somebody you want to network with during the network portion of the time frame during the night to make those connections.
Let me say something real fast about the tasting. We had 21 folks bring in honey tonight. If you brought in honey, raise your hand, please. Thank you all for doing that. That's great. We've had 8 ballots turned in and nobody's got more than 1 vote. So there's no winner of the car tonight. I hate to say that, it's tied 8 ways. So go back and vote and see if we can have a tiebreaker. But thank you all for bringing in the honey.
Let's see. So do we know, are all of these door prizes, the slow cooker here, is that a door prize? Does anybody know? Okay, so I'm going to assume everything up here is a door prize. I need somebody to pick a number. Oh, the pictures are not. Okay. Okay, so yeah, nobody take the pictures. We got 2 plants, we got a slow cooker and a box of peppers, it looks like. How about the, oh, tomatoes? Okay. All right. Okay, there are tomatoes for a tomato sandwich, she says. Okay, my first number is 955. Well, I'm going to just read the last 3 numbers, 008. You have 008. All right. And the next number is 014. Okay, we got a winner over there. How many do I have? It looks like I've got a total of 4, I believe. So 2 winners so far. Oh, we have 5. Is that glass part of it? The glass is too. Okay. Okay. 991. Do we have a 991? Okay. 010. I said 010, yes. We have a winner. Okay, I think I got at least one more, 024. All right, we have 024. I'm going to wait to see if we actually have anything left. Okay, so I think we have one more. And that is 013. You are the winner of the slow cooker. You can melt wax in that. Okay, so thanks everybody. So remember the honey tasting and the ice cream and